Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another album review, and today I want to talk about the new AJJ record, Disposable Everything. Unlike most of their folk punk peers, AJJ never really faded out of relevance. I mean, they never really got stuck on the absolute bottom of underground music in the same way that many different folk punk projects and artists tragically do, and at the same time, AJJ never really steered super far away from their punk based origins in the same way that other ex folk punk bands like Against Me ultimately did. Against Me obviously went in a very successful pop punk direction, but AJJ always really stayed the same despite the fact that they've grown over time aesthetically and artistically. In a way, in a strange sort of way at that, it's arguable that AJJ are the definitive folk punk band in the post-Violent Femmes era, or at least that they are tied with Titus Andronicus for that title. And it's arguable that that largely has to do with the constant emotional evolution that AJJ has found themselves in over the years. They've really grown in a way that's kind of rare for punk bands of any kind, let alone a folk punk band. Look, albums like Good Luck Everybody and even Christmas Island may be a bit messy in nature, but generally speaking, they are fairly impressive if you're looking through a magnifying glass that really does highlight how much AJJ have grown and changed since they first really made it onto the scene in the mid to late 2000s as they stepped into the limelight for the first time. They really have evolved in a pretty spectacular way, despite the fact that their discography is pretty consistently good but not great. Also, yes, I know that those aforementioned albums are just a touch too self-serious at times. However, it's rare for a really great folk punk project to release more than a couple albums before imploding in a tragic ball of flames, so I will take what I can get, okay? Disposable Everything, the latest studio album from AJJ, sees them once again continuing to grow and arguably releasing the most consistent album of their discography to date, something that I was personally not expecting at all. Virtually every single song on Disposable Everything is composed in a very competent manner, and I know that doesn't sound like very high praise, that would be the bare minimum for many other bands if I'm being totally honest, but at the same time, for AJJ, that is a quality that is great for any given record of theirs, as well as a quality that most of their albums just simply don't have. Consistency has never been the key word for AJJ, and as a group, the five piece have been, let's say, hit or miss in terms of memorability, and that really goes for even some of their best and most iconic works. After all, even the career-defining album that was 2007's People Who Can Eat People Are the Luckiest People in the World, one of the definitive folk punk albums of all time, has songs that are just incredibly unmemorable, like Randy's House. I mean, sure, there are some iconic tracks on there, like Brave as a Noun, that are utterly fantastic in every way, but it's an album that's under 30 minutes long, and it's arguably the album that people remember them for the most, yet at the same time, there are still some genuinely undistinct and downright not good tracks on there. I know that may be a bit of a hot take, but it's far from a perfect album, and although its best moments are downright amazing, its worst moments are dreadfully boring, and that's a pretty common occurrence within the AJJ discography. However, this seemingly omnipresent trope that has constantly popped up throughout the entirety of the band's discography seemingly has no place on Disposable Everything, which is not only a great thing for this record, but a great thing for AJJ in general, as you could seriously argue that this is their most consistent album in general. That, again, may be a bit of an unpopular opinion among diehards of the band, but really, this is one of the best track lists that we've ever gotten from AJJ in general. The longer cuts here, such as White Ghosts, for example, feel very well thought out and passionately put together in terms of song structure, while other tracks here that are shorter, such as Dissonance or I Hate Rock and Roll Again, are just brief enough that they can get in and get out of the listener's ears, leaving as much of an impact as they possibly could. AJJ recognized that these songs don't really have enough concept behind them to be particularly long or more heavily developed, and as such, they just simply aren't. The brevity does them good, and the tracks that are longer here feel like they warrant their length. This isn't to mention songs like In the Valley, for example, which have this sort of classic folk sing-along kind of vibe to them overall, which I personally really like. It definitely isn't for everybody, but it kind of gives off this sort of classic early to mid-60s Joan Baez sort of tone that I can really get behind. To review or at that criticize an AJJ album without distinctly pointing out a few songs that really drag down the track list as a whole is a very strange feeling indeed, but Disposable Everything makes that seemingly unlikely scenario with the reality of the situation. This is a genuinely fantastic list of songs that doesn't have a single weak moment, even if there are a couple of tracks that I personally prefer over others. Despite the fact that there are still some age-old flaws that have haunted AJJ since practically the beginning of their career found here, this record also feels as if their songwriting abilities were just suddenly elevated randomly. I mean, they've always been a group of strong lyricists, but this album particularly shines that quality of them. Of course, the best songwriting that has come from the band over time has been just as comical as it has been conscious of the lives that they write about. However, the past couple of albums that have been released under the AJJ name have been a little more oriented in the serious songwriting department, with a little bit less of the deadpan style of humor that really defined them in general. In fact, a lot of the reason that they were really set apart from most of their folk punk peers is that they were able to write in a sarcastic, dry manner that felt just as genuinely easy to laugh along with as it was to relate to, in a way that most other punk musicians simply could not capture accurately. And for the past couple album cycles, that just really hasn't been a key factor in AJJ's music, something that was so obviously important, yet it wasn't something that I think anybody really noticed was that important until said albums came out. Disposable Everything is the perfect balance between the more serious aesthetics that AJJ has been picking up in recent years, with the more comedic, humorous, or at least humor-adjacent side of the band that have really defined a lot of their best works, in my eyes at least. For example, there is the extraordinarily brief track I Hate Rock and Roll Again, which uses the actual death of outsider legend Daniel Johnston, as well as the old age of Neil Young, as symbolism for the passing of time and the way that time relates to the band's viewpoint on the musical landscape of the world as a whole and their place in it. It's a dark song that really does utilize some not funny topics to make something that is both relatable yet at the same time kind of powerful. It is still funny to hear them talking about the fact that Daniel Johnston died and now everything sucks, but at the same time, Daniel Johnston did die and everything does kind of suck in that scenario. It's brutally honest songwriting that's put through a deadpan dark comedy filter, and it's all pulled off really well, and it's something that AJJ has been known for, so that really shouldn't come as a surprise, but nonetheless, it's great to see it really put back into the spotlight as a key feature in their music. You have a lot of similar moments here. The track, The Baby Panda, utilizes a dead baby panda as darkly comedic imagery. The song Moon Valley High randomly name drops Jamiroquai of Virtual Insanity fame for seemingly no other reason than the fact that, I don't know, AJJ can do what they want. Fuck you, I guess. Of course, these lyrics will not be to everybody's taste, and I think that should really go without saying. People who are really not fans of this particular style of songwriting are absolutely going to cringe at some of the lyrics here. In fact, there are a couple times where I cringed myself, in a good way, I think. And you know what? Sean Bonnett's very whine-based vocal style is definitely not going to lend any assistance to already established haters of AJJ's style. If you like them, you like them. If you don't, you don't. And if you have no experience with the band, then I'll be totally honest, this is probably a good place to start. But if you know you like them, you'll like this record. If you know you don't like them, then don't even bother, because this is just an advanced version of what they've been doing for years at this point. That being said, people with a taste for AJJ and their own comedic style, such as myself, will likely find themselves very amused by tracks like the Iggy Pop and the Stooges referencing I Wanna Be Your Dog 2, which is about the umpteenth time that they've referenced another band or musician on this album alone, but nonetheless it's still a very pleasant and genuinely kind of funny track in concept. But more importantly, they will be just as impressed by the genuine balladry that's found on tracks like Candles of Love, or even some of the raw and at times slightly psychedelic production style choices that are made on cuts like Strawberry Probably, both of which are major highlights on this record and some of the best songs that AJJ have put out in a while. Look, I won't pretend that AJJ have the single best discography in the history of folk-influenced rock/punk music. In fact, AJJ don't even have the best discography attached to a band with a name made out of 3 letters. That is an honor that goes to the one and only XTC. AJJ can't even win in the most niche market possible, I swear to God. What AJJ do have, however, is an unrelenting determination to completely stay true to themselves. I mean, sure, each passing record sees them change things up a little bit, grow in a certain direction, maybe kind of peter off into a certain style and a certain direction artistically, but nonetheless, it's always AJJ. It's always still the same band, the same sonic qualities. It's just to varying different degrees of success. It is arguable that Disposable Everything is all of those varying qualities, whether it be the actual song structures and melodies, the songwriting, even the production. This is arguably the best possible result of all of those things coming together. In fact, you could really make a solid argument that Disposable Everything is more consistent in the qualities that make for a great AJJ record than even other great AJJ records are. Look, I love a record like Knife Man as much as the next version with No Friends, but I really do honestly think that there are some qualities on this record alone that are kind of better than that, and kind of better than the vast majority of the AJJ discography up to this point. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit shocked by this, as I was expecting this to be solid based on the singles alone, but I wasn't really expecting it to be great, yet here we are. Now, I know that many AJJ diehard fans will probably consider this a somewhat delusional take, but I really do think there's an argument to be made, not a definitive argument, but an argument to be made, that this record, Disposable Everything, is the single best album that the folk punk legends have put out to date. Yes, better than all of their classics. I really do legitimately think that this could be argued as their best album. Then again, my other favorite AJJ album is Can't Maintain, which apparently shouldn't be my other favorite AJJ album, so hey, what do I know? What do I know? I'm going to give this record 4 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.